Hey guys, what's going on? It's BaLLHaWK here, and I figured I am going to start recording my videos for the Quarantine Draft League Season 2, and I figured what better way than to get some practice and just start doing it. What I'm going to go over today is my matchup in this last week's IPA Draft League, the Indigo Plateau Association, and just kind of give you some background as to what the matchup looked like, my team building thought process, and kind of just go over my thought process throughout the game as it was being played. I've never done anything like this before, so bear with me. This is my first recorded video. If you like it, hit the like button, subscribe. There's going to be a lot of this coming out in the future. I plan on doing some other fun stuff along the way, like just grinding videos on the ladder, kind of showing, commentating out loud, as we're already doing with Seth a little bit, and just kind of going over some informative stuff. Is probably primarily going to be geared towards draft league content. I've been hitting that stuff pretty heavy over the past 3 or 4 months with the quarantine upon us and all. And honestly, I just enjoy this stuff. So I've learned a lot the last few months. A lot of invaluable information. There were a lot of growing pains along the way, and by no means am I at to the point where I feel like, okay, I can hang with the best of them. I'm still learning, clearly, and there's a lot of things that I could be better at, but it's a learning process. And I figured, hey, what better way than to learn together? I learned some things, maybe I can pass them on to you, so you don't have to feel as much of the pain when you try this stuff out on your own. And we have a new draft just finishing up in the Quarantine Draft League, and I think Seth and I will probably go over a power rankings video maybe and kind of show what the teams look like, and maybe I'll do a video myself kind of breaking down the draft and what I usually look for round by round, and just kind of give you guys a taste of what it looks like to draft a team, and what are the kind of things you might be looking for to build the best team possible. If you haven't done draft league before, the format is you typically draft 11 Pokemon usually. It's a national deck style, so any Pokemon that's available or any Pokemon that has been introduced to the game is available to be drafted, unless it is considered an Ubers or a banned Pokemon for mostly national decks. But it varies from league to league as far as what they allow, what they don't allow. But without further ado, let's just kind of get back into it. So again, this is my matchup for week 10 of the IPA. It is an 11-week season, and we started off pretty rocky. Let me see if I can pull it up here. There's the matchup anyway. I'm the head coach of the Milwaukee Miltanks. That's my team. Showing off some Wisconsin pride there. So we started off very rocky. The first, I'd say 5 weeks, going 1-4. Definitely not the way we wanted to start things off, but we've kind of gotten a roll the last 5 weeks and turned it around a lot. I think we've kind of finally hit our stride and figured out the team, figured out what works well, what doesn't work well, and learned some lessons along the way, and we are on a 5-game winning streak. Woo! Heating up. Looking to keep it going. Shoot, spoiler alert, you didn't see that. So, take a look at the standings. We have Hydreigon in the top 10 for kills. Other than that, my team really isn't geared towards just having one main sweeper. It's kind of versatile in that way, where a lot of different Pokemon can be very useful. So yeah, Hydreigon's number 10. Mamoswine's just outside the top 10 at number 16, and then we have Blastoise at 20 as well. So there's a lot of different things on my team that kind of work well. It's very versatile, and I like it. I think I think it has some pretty good synergy, and it's just kind of learning those little intricate synergies along the way. That I think that's something that we had to go through in the first 5 weeks, and unfortunately we weren't able to win while we did it. We put ourselves in a deep hole, and fortunately we've been able to climb back out of it, and we're looking pretty. And I think right now we might be locked into the playoffs. Kind of not even worrying about what happens next week, possibly. Anyway, so this is our matchup. On my team, we have Hydreigon, Scizor, Rotom-Mow, Chandelure, Aromatisse, Archops, Mega Blastoise, Mamoswine, Mew, Licky, and Garbodor. And my opponent's team looked like Darmanitan Galar, Hatterene, Salazzle, Inteleon, Komala, Lickitung, Mega Ampharos, Conkeldurr, Amoonguss, Registeel, and Dusclops. So looking at this right away, by the way, I spent about a week making this, if I say so myself, fabulous looking team builder prep planner. I call it the battle planner. Just kind of referencing J.M. Vad's new book, which if you haven't checked it out, you should. His new book on just kind of learning competitive Pokemon. But I call it the battle planner because in his book he references Pokemon as a battle a lot and having an army and such. And I thought I kind of like that. I want to keep that thought process going. It makes it fun in my mind. So but yeah, I've spent a good solid week building this battle planner, and it outlines things a lot. It kind of gives you an overview of the teams up here, the abilities, base speeds. Just kind of looking up here. If you go down to Speed Wars section down here, it shows you what are the fastest mons in the matchup from both teams. Any Pokemon on all teams shows you the speed matchup, and what are the slowest mons, and then it shows you what are the max EVs needed in order to outspeed the next fastest mon. If we're assuming they all have a positive speed nature and max speed EVs. So this is a very valuable section of the document. It's helped out quite a bit, just kind of getting a feel for what might outspeed something or what I need to outspeed. Just kind of checking my balances, or checking my checks, if you will. Next section down here, this is probably one of my favorite sections, the type chart that shows what my teammates are strong against, what they're weak against, and it gives you a general overview as to what your team as a whole is weak to or strong against. It just basically looks at how many resistances do you have to a type to how many weaknesses do you have, and if you have more resistances than weaknesses, then you have a strong matchup. So it's kind of arbitrary that way. It doesn't really take into account synergy and stuff like that, but it's a basic overview of type chart weaknesses. And it does take into account levitate and such, which don't get me started on how long that took. That was a stumper trying to figure out how to take into account abilities for this without going through and individually marking every one of these Pokemon for what they're weak against. This is a fully automated formula, as is all the entire document. It's all fully automated. There's some pretty sweet features. Next up is the stat overview section. This kind of shows what all the stats are. You can sort it based on speed, HP, kind of give you a general overview of what their best stats are, what they're weak to, some things that you might be able to exploit. And I love using this document just for kind of looking at my team as I'm building a draft. It's very informative. It tells you what you might be missing out on, what you might need. And so I like using it that way. It's a very, very powerful tool for Draft League. And then we have the hazard section. As you can see, my hazards in this matchup and the hazard removal far outshine my opponent. And kind of looking back at this now, I don't think I really viewed this section too much when I was building. Maybe I should have. It probably would have helped out a lot, especially thinking that I wanted to go with Hex Chandelure. Being able to spread toxic spikes might have been invaluable, or even just spikes. Just take into account things that you might be switching in spikes and rocks. That would have helped a lot. It shows you all the hazards that each teams have. Hazard removal, another very important part. It shows the priorities. What Pokemon have some very strong priority or typical priority moves that you would be looking out for. We have the Cleric section. Usually I'm just looking at Heal Bell and Wish and Aromatherapy for singles. Another thing this document does is it looks into a lot of doubles or VGC team building. One thing you'll learn if you continue to watch my videos is I like to play a lot of VGC style draft leagues as well. I've just started picking those up, and I'm in 2 leagues right now, and they are a lot of fun. There's a lot of different intricate team building processes and just ideas that you have to process and think, a lot of just different synergies that you might have to think about that you wouldn't otherwise for singles, and it's a different approach, and it's kind of refreshing after doing a lot of singles draft leagues in the last few months. But this document does gear towards singles and doubles, so I don't know how many other prep documents do that. But kind of get back into it. I have quite a bit of Heal, Wish, Cleric passing. Licky Licky and Aromatissy have been very big for me this season, being very bulky Wish passers and both immune to Taunt. With Licky Licky with Oblivious and Aromatissy with Sweet Veil, I believe, is the ability that blocks that. They're immune to Taunt, and so they can't be stopped unless they're just taken out. And my opponent just has a Lickitung, which, like Licky, very, very good wish passer. Coming down to weather, it does not look like either of us have any really weather abusing abilities. We have the moves to set weather, but neither of us are able to really take advantage or do anything with them. We're able to block him with Cloud 9, which is good to know in a lot of battles. Actually, Licky had a matchup against a rain team this season, and Licky just kind of dominated that matchup for me, allowing me to just ignore the rain and take out a Charizard, a Kingdra, or a Mega Swampert. It was phenomenal. Terrain isn't really being taken too much into account here. Neither of us have a terrain setting ability. And Grassy Surge, Psychic Surge, Misty Surge, or Electric Surge. And in all honesty, this section isn't really useful right now unless you're playing in a league that allows the out of armor tutor moves, where things like terrain battles would be a little more prevalent when you have moves like Grassy Glide or Rising Voltage to take advantage of, or even Steel Roller. So down here, this is kind of for future leagues that will be allowing those things. Right now in this one we do not. This league started before the Isle of Armor DLC came out, so those things aren't allowed yet. Here we have speed support moves, Tailwind, which they are sometimes valuable in singles, not so much, more so in doubles. This whole section is kind of more geared towards doubles, other than having, highlighting who has access to Thunder Wave or Cotton Spore or Glare or Nuzzle, those kind of things. And lastly, we have more double support geared stuff. So this is really just things that you would typically see in doubles. Follow Me, Rage Powder, Ally Switch, powerful redirection moves, Helping Hand, Parasong, Beat Up, and then screens and guards. So getting back into the matchup, let's scroll up here. The only thing, so some of the things that screamed out to me in this, just kind of previewing this matchup, he has 3 really fast Pokemon in Inteleon, Salazzle, and Darmanitan, and then the rest of his team is super slow. So that was something that I felt like I could exploit a little bit or take advantage of. Just having some strong switch-ins for Inteleon, Salazzle, or Darmanitan, or just being able to have some kind of plan of action to take to deal with them. I thought about bringing Hydreigon, but just Inteleon and Darmanitan together, and along with Hatterene and Conkeldurr, just I knew that Hydreigon probably wasn't going to have a great matchup in this game, so I just kind of left it on the sideline. I was definitely going to bring Mew. I don't think anybody could have talked me out of bringing Mew this week, and that was going to be my fastest Pokemon in the matchup. And then coming from here, there were just some other Pokemon that just kind of looking at the type chart down here, seeing that he's weak to Ground, Psychic, doesn't have the best matchup for Fire. Chandelure looks like he can come in and just kind of click buttons against his team. And aside from that, there wasn't a whole lot else that I was able to gather from that other than just kind of give a general game plan before I dove into things. Looking at all this stuff in detail, I definitely thought he was going to bring Darmanitan, Galar, Salazzle, Registeel. I was expecting Conkeldurr, Lickitung, Hatterene, and Dusclops as well. I thought he was going to go hard Trick Room and also bring Mega Ampharos. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring Mew. I thought I wanted to bring a Choice Scarf Rotom just to have some kind of speed in case he wasn't a Scarf Darmanitan. And then Chandelure and Scizor for sure, just to have some kind of balance against Salazzle so that Salazzle couldn't beat me on its own. Those two had great synergy against Salazzle with being immune to poison and having fast, hard-hitting priority, and then being immune to fire and having Infiltrator, which Chandelure had. I could have had a lot of fun with this one in this matchup. Having access to Infiltrator to kind of counteract Salazzle's Toxic, Protect, or shenanigans. But in the end, I think I wanted to bring Chandelure with the Flash Fire ability just because it would give me an immunity. And I thought being immune to any of Salazzle's moves would have been far better than just being able to let Salazzle sweep me. If I didn't have Flash Fire on Chandelure, I don't think Chandelure would have been able to handle Salazzle at all. And Salazzle just takes out Scizor with Flamethrower. So I definitely thought that Flash Fire was the move to go, or the ability to run. So at this point I had Mew, I had Rotom-Mow, I had Chandelure, I had Scizor. Mega Blastoise had a phenomenal matchup against my opponent. He doesn't really have anything that can really deal with it too well right off the bat. He has Mega Ampharos, but Mega Blastoise is going to deal a lot of damage to Mega Ampharos before he does anything to us. And so there were a couple of things that really threatened my team that I thought Blastoise would be able to handle well and kind of take out for me for the rest of my team. So you don't hear Salazzle did not like Blastoise. One Water Pulse would have knocked it out outright, and just being able to do it to something that threatened my team so much in Salazzle, that was definitely a must bring. Having Aurasphere really just threatened a lot of his team as well. Darmanitan did not like it. He would have been OHKO'd outright. Komala, Lickitung, Registeel all would not have appreciated an Aurasphere coming from Mega Launcher Blastoise. So that was a definite bring. I felt Ice Beam would have provided me some extra good coverage, being able to hit things like a Moongus and Mega Ampharos. And then Dark Pulse I thought was a must-have just to be able to hit Dusclops hard. And so I didn't want to be left high and dry and end up losing to a Dusclops because I didn't have a way to hit it with Mega Blastoise. So I thought having just 4 solid coverage moves on Mega Blastoise would be a good thing to bring. So then at this point I got Mew, Rotom-Mow, Chandelure, Scizor, Mega Blastoise, and from there I really needed a way to just kind of heal up, having some prolonged just cleric support, especially going up against Salazzle, dealing with Conkeldurr, being able to pressure that with more than just Chandelure or Scizor. I felt the need to bring Aromatisse this week instead of Licky. Licky could have been a decent Wishpasher, but just being so vulnerable to fighting when my opponent has Conkeldurr just did not bode well. So Aromatisse was definitely the play here. I had the idea of maybe he wasn't going to run max speed on Conkeldurr. I'm not sure what the typical spread for Conkeldurr in Draft League is. I wasn't sure if it was adamant max attack, max speed, or if it's you're trying to just max out your bulk and go 252 HP and 252 attack. So I had the idea that maybe I could give Aromatisse enough speed EVs to outspeed Conkeldurr and then just catch him by surprise with the Moonblast and knock out Conkeldurr before he was able to hit Aromatisse. So that was something that I kind of liked, and so so I think that's it for the team builder, or the battle planner. Head on over to the actual team that I built together and brought to battle this week. So again, I brought Mega Blastoise, and building this team, I had the thought that maybe I should have just led Mega Blastoise, because being able to bring Blastoise in for free and Mega Evolve without any residual damage being done so far would have been huge to have some extra bulk to take things better, and nothing on his team was able to OHKO Blastoise outright. And honestly, I don't think anything on his team was able to hit KO Blastoise outright, so he was able to click some buttons and just do some major damage right away for free, really. And that was my plan with Mega Blastoise here, and I just wanted to give him max bulk, give him just enough speed EVs so that he could outspeed Komala, because Komala gets Power Whip or Wood Hammer, and although it would not have OHKO'd Blastoise outright, it would have been I would have kicked myself so hard if I would have been I would have lost Blastoise to a Power Whip or a Wood Hammer. So I wanted to make sure I outsped him, and I like the modest nature with Mega Blastoise and just being able to hit harder and have max bulk. I think that's huge. And then whatever EVs I had left after having 252 HP and being able to outspeed Komala, I just dumped into Special Attack to be able to hit a little bit harder. So, and then I had Water Pulse, Aurasphere, and Dark Pulse, and Ice Beam, just to have 4 coverage moves to hit anything on his team that I thought might be threatening to the rest of my team. Next up we have Mew Girl. Mew is the new addition to the team. Previously, to start the season, I had Victini, and I had dropped it for Alakazam when I picked up Chandelure. And then one of my fellow division mates, if you will, just dropped Mew last week, and so I jumped on the opportunity to use Mew in a draft league. And being the first week that I could bring it, nobody was going to tell me I can't bring Mew this week, especially being my fastest Pokemon. I definitely wanted to bring Mew. Or at least, it's not my fastest Pokemon, but Archops didn't really have the greatest matchup this week. It could have been useful, but I ultimately decided against it. I wanted to bring Mew. I wanted to be able to set up and just do some damage. I wanted to be able to set up Cosmic Power, taunt anything trying to stop me from doing that, like Dusclops or maybe a Lickitung or something, anything else that has taunt. And I just wanted to be able to set up and then click some Sword Power and Soft Boil, heal up whenever I can. So that was my game plan with Mew. Just wanted to have max bulk. I wanted 216 speed EVs so that Mew could outspeed Darmanitan and Galar. That was the only thing that he was getting ready to outspeed. And then the rest is just max bulk and special attack or special defense to be able to take things from maybe Inteleon or Salazzle or Hatterene a little better. Next we have Chandelure, Sia, as she is hanging from the chandelier. I love Chandelure, having such a massive special attack stat, and then it's fairly fast as well, and being immune to fighting types, being immune to fire types. In this matchup especially, where I'm going against Conkeldurr and Salazzle, Chandelure is not ever going to be sitting on the bench for this week. Again, I kind of went over my plan to status things a lot, so that way Hex could do even that much more. I figured that his Conkeldurr was already going to come statused for me with Guts, and so just being able to deal with that right away with Chandelure could have been great, and clear the way for things like Scizor or Mega Blastoise just to do what they do even better, or Mew. Not having to deal with Conkeldurr with knockoff would have allowed Mew to have more opportunities to set up multiple times during the game, and so that was something else that was in the back of my mind building this. I wanted to have, usually all my EVs are just kind of geared around making sure I can outspeed something or take a hit here and there, and then just putting the rest in something else. As you kind of gathered, I'm sure. But Chandelure, I wanted Chandelure to be able to outspeed his Komala again. Maybe not Komala, but I forget if it was Komala or Registeel that I wanted Chandelure to be able to outspeed. 224 EVs in speed, and then the rest in special attack or max special attack to do as much damage as possible, because the only things that really threaten Chandelure, Salazzle can't do anything to it. I was never going to have Chandelure sitting in front of Inteleon or Darmanitan where they come in, and the rest of his team just isn't that threatening. So I'm pretty sure it was just Komala that I wanted to make sure I outsped, and then just put the rest into special attack to deal as much damage as possible whenever Chandelure's in. And then 32 in defense just to see if he could live something better. And then I wanted to focus Sash, just looking at the hazard control. My opponent doesn't really have too much for hazard, so I wasn't really concerned about the Sash getting broken. And just being able to come in full health and just fire off a strong overheat or Hex on something that he would have assumed he could knock out Chandelure with, and just get hit with a Sash and then slap right back in the face and possibly pick up a knockout for myself. That would have been huge. And then Substitute, I thought that would have been nice to have multiple things to set a Substitute up on, and then just hit Will-O-Wisp and then be able to fire off more Hexes, or just click Overheat and get out of there for free against something like Salazzle, or Darmanitan if I have a Substitute up when they come in. That would have been huge. Next up we have Husqvarna. Husqvarna is a brand of tractor lawnmowers, if you did not know. And this Husqvarna is out here taming the wild. I've grown to love Rotom-Mow a lot recently, especially in Draft League. Having these three together, they have such good synergy overall, being immune to ground, for Chandelure. Chandelure being able to take fire attacks for both of these two. Scizor being able to take steel attacks for Rotom-Mow, and water attacks. Both these taking water attacks for him, or her, I should say. These three have just great synergy that I've grown to love over the course of the season. But anyway, I wanted Rotom-Mow. I wanted to have some type of fast Scarf with a trick option in case he wanted to use Dusclops or something, and I had Rotom-Mow sitting in front of it. I could really mess with his game plan if I were able to trick a Scarf onto something like that. And Volt Switch just for gaining momentum throughout the match. Leaf Storm to hit hard, and Thunder Wave to provide more status. 248 HP is kind of something that I've grown to be, standard on Rotom-Mow. So you have an odd 303 HP, and I think the main reason for that is so that if you get hit with something that's going to provide like 50 HP, it gives you more of a chance to be left with one HP left over in certain attacks, or if they're going to knock you out outright, or it's just it plays into the calculations a little more than having just straight up 252. I think that's the reason why that is the way it is. 76 speed EVs in Rotom because I wanted to be able to outspeed either Mega Ampharos or Kamala, and I just dumped the rest of it into special defense, be able to take things from Inteleon, like an Ice Beam, or even Salazzle, if possible, to even live a Flamethrower or a Sludge Wave from Salazzle. And that was the Rotom set. Scizor. I love Scizor. Scizor is probably my favorite Pokemon if you've listened to Septicus Rex's YouTube videos where he and I are attempting to climb the OU ladder. We had a conversation in one of the previous episodes that, what are our favorite mons? And my favorite Pokemon of all time is Scizor, regular and Mega form. It is just, it's phenomenal looking. It's got great typing. Hits super hard, very bulky, and it's just hard to deal with. And I wanted to go max attack in this one just to be able to get the most bang for my buck with my Bullet Punch. Bullet Punch was going to be the main damage dealer on Scizor this week. U-turn is just from slow momentum gaining, and Roost, just if I was able to get up a Roost and gain more health and prolong Scizor throughout the match. And Defog, looking back now at the hazard layout, Defog really wasn't doing much for me. I probably should have ran Knockoff instead. That would have provided me more options, I think, and more utility out of Scizor. Or maybe even Aerial Ace to be able to hit a Conkeldurr for super effective damage instead. But I opted to go for Defog just for the off chance that he brought hazards, and I didn't want them stacking up on my team. 252 attack and the Metal Coat allowed me to guarantee a one-hit KO on his Galar Darmanitan with Bullet Punch. So that was the reasoning there. I figured it might get a little cold, and I wanted to make sure I brought my coat. And then going on to the last teammate of this week's team, I brought Shakira. I love Aromatisse. Such a valuable part of the team, having a bulky, slow Wish Passer. She's got pretty strong special attack. I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at either. I think it's up in the 90s. So her Moonblast is able to hit pretty hard. And being a tier 4 is just very, very invaluable to my team. It's a pretty standard set that I like to run. 252 HP, enough speed EVs, like I said, because I wanted to see if I could catch his Conkeldurr off guard if he wasn't running any speed on Conkeldurr. 132 speed EVs with the Bold Nature would have ensured that I could outspeed a non-speed boosting nature on Conkeldurr. And then I just dumped the rest into defense, and I went with the standard attacks and Moonblast, Wish, Heal Bell, and Protect. Just some Moonblast stab and then Wish, Heal Bell, and Protect to be able to heal and provide cleric support to the rest of my team. And so yeah, that's the team, and get into the battle here. I guess we'll just start it off and provide some commentary as I move along here. So I kind of forgot my notes leading up to this. I said that I wanted to lead off with Mega Blastoise and just Mega Evolve right away. After that happened, after I started up, all those notes kind of went to the wind, and I totally forgot my game plan. So I decided to opt for my Scarf user as he went for his Scarf user himself, and I was like, oh crap, this is bad. So I figured he'd probably go for a U-turn. It was just a safe momentum gaining play, and so I felt like my only switch in at that point was for Chandelure. Chandelure was able to tank that very well. Unfortunately, it broke our sash, but I didn't think it hurt too much. And then at this point, we're kind of behind the 8-ball, and we have to bring in Blastoise. Just looking at the damage output there, I was able to tell that he was definitely a spec'd Inteleon. And it made a lot of sense because he didn't have to really worry about speed control with Inteleon, as Inteleon was just outright faster than anything on my team. And it allowed me to get a little more extra power on his Inteleon to hit my team super effectively with certain moves. So I was able to tell he's specs Inteleon, just kind of put that feather in my cap and remember it for later in the match, in case I'm able to bring something in that you otherwise wouldn't in the face of a water attacker like that. At this point, I went to Arat to Mega Evolve Blastoise and go for a Dark Pulse, just in case you wanted to switch out into something else. I didn't think he was going to keep his Inteleon in, but I definitely wanted to make sure I could hit something in case he decided to switch in, say, Dusclops, or Salazzle or something else, or Darmanitan but he brought his Licky Licky in, and next turn I opted to go for Aura Sphere just to get some super effective damage off. I was so surprised by Licky Licky, or Lickitung. I didn't think he was going to bring it, but now looking back on it, I don't see why he wouldn't have. Eviolite Lickitung is crazy bulky, and having two Eviolite users in Lickitung and Dusclops in the team that he brought just provided so much bulk and support to the rest of his team, so things like Conkeldurr, Inteleon, Darmanitan, and Salazzle were able to just punch holes through the opponent and not really worry about having to take too many hits when they're in positions where they don't have to. Having Seismic Toss on Lickitung and Nightshade on Dusclops allows them to just chunk the opposing team and get them in range, and they have Pain Split and Wish, and so it's kind of just a very bulky wear the opponent down to the point where Darmanitan and company can just sweep. And so I was kind of gaining that sense as the game went on, and I knew Lickitung was going to be an issue. So at this point, I just opted to go for another Aura Sphere. Does some pretty good damage to Conkeldurr. I was surprised that it did 31%. But at this point, I was kind of fearing a Thunder Punch, so I didn't think it would knock out Blastoise. But at the same time, I thought, well, if he goes for Thunder Punch, it gives me a free switch into something else, maybe Chandelure that can come in and just click Hex and take his Conkeldurr out if he opts to switch or stay in. So he decided to go for the knockoff. Blastoise took that very well, and so I thought at this point we'll switch out, bring in Rotom Mow, and unfortunately we lose our Scarf there. The play there might have been to just stay in and just keep wearing down his Conkeldurr. But, you know, in the heat of the moment, emotions kind of get in the way and you forget your game plan a little bit. And so that's one of the things that I need to improve on, is just kind of the nerves and kind of remembering and thinking about ahead. You know, what's the best way to play things out. But he opts to switch out his Conkeldurr at that point, as I just go for a Volt Switch. And then we bring Mule Girl out. And so this is the opportunity that I was looking for. I wanted to get Mew in, I wanted to set up Cosmic Power, and I wanted to sweep. Things kind of started off well. You go for Taunt so he can't status me or anything like that. He goes for Nightshade, which I expected. And then now I can just start setting up Cosmic Powers for a few turns and get my defenses up. He's going to be able to just keep chunking me by 20% or so after Leftovers Recovery. And so at this point, that's got to be the only move attack that he has, damage dealing attack that he has, so I'm not really too worried about anything else. Here, I should have gone for another Taunt instead of going for Soft Foil, because he had to be carrying Will-O-Wisp or Toxic, and so I really made myself vulnerable to that. Next turn I should have gone for Taunt again, but instead I go for Sword Power, and that was a misclick on my end, or on my part. And we're both misclicking at this point. He should have been continuing to go for Toxic whenever he could, just to try and take advantage of some misplays on my end if I were to make any, which I ended up making. Because at this point, nothing on his team could really come in and do any damage to Mew aside from Lickitung and Dusclops, and without a timer, so to speak, via Toxic, Mew was just threatening to his entire team, and honestly could have swept. And should have. But misplays are going to happen. They're part of the game. They're part of the learning process. I definitely should have taunted and made sure to stay up on taunt, so he couldn't do anything like that until I was able to max out my attack or my defense and special defense. And so he finally opts to go for Toxic. And at that point, I'm like, okay, shoot, I made a mistake. But we stay in. We go for Sword Power, and we get a lucky crit the next turn after that soft boiled. Hindsight, this was massive for a game. It's unfortunate. It's part of the game. I did kind of feel bad taking Lickitung out like that. That crit definitely mattered, and the funny part about it too is that it was, I think the damage calculator, crits do kind of vary in range, kind of like normal attacks. That crit was a high roll even. I got a high roll crit, and I think it did something up to like 41% max, or maybe it was even 40% max with a crit against that Lickitung set. Max bulk and max special attack. or special defense. So we removed Lickitung luckily, and that was one wall out of our way. I don't feel great about the way that it happened, but it happened, and we were able to get it. So no use in crying over spilled milk at this point. It's definitely happened to us more than a few times, and we take those. So at this point, he brings in Salazzle, and had I not been toxic, you would have been in a fantastic position to just wear down Salazzle and knock it out after 1 or 2 turns after he would have toxic then protected. But instead, we have to bring in Blastoise. I had a feeling he was going to go for Protect right away just to get more toxic chip. And from here we go for a Dark Pulse or a Water Pulse. Go for a Water Pulse instead, sorry. You see if he could, catch his Salazzle if he's going to stay in. He doesn't, he switches out, and then instead we go for Dark Pulse to get rid of Dusclops. So at this point, both those huge, heavy, bulky Eviolite walls are out of the way. And he's left with a few frail Mons in Salazzle, Darmanitan, and Inteleon, and then he's got Conkeldurr, which can take some attacks in his own right. But at this point, those are 2 big walls to my team that could have been very, very annoying throughout the battle that were taken out fairly early, and I felt good about it at this point. At this point, I'm up 2-0, and Blastoise is in a prime position to keep doing damage. Unfortunately, Mew was toxic. That kind of sucked a little bit, and my sash was broken on Chandelure. But overall, I felt pretty good about the way the game had gone to this point. So here he goes out to Darmanitan, and he goes for Earthquake. I just decided to stay in and go for an Aura Sphere just to see if we lived and could get off some extra damage. But we did not. And then at this point, I made a mistake thinking that, no, I'm thinking something else. Here, I thought he might have switched out. And I just went for the Volt Switch. Brought Chandelure in. He goes for the Toxic, which was kind of expected, and I just go for some damage. I wasn't totally sure how much Overheat would have done at that point, but I knew it was more than Hex. I didn't intend on keeping Chandelure in at all, because I knew he was going to go for Toxic. It was his only play. And here I was a little willy-nilly, and I just kind of gave him Rotom-Mow. I forgot that my Scarf had been knocked off. But he goes for Protect, gets some little extra leftovers recovery to be able to ball things a little better, stall things out a little more. I kind of wish I would have just gone out to Chandelure there instead. But, so now we go into Chandelure now, and this is kind of where that match became in question a lot. It was just kind of who could stall out who better. Hex was going to do about 30 to 40% each time, maybe even 50%. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. It might be. I think it might have been 60 without Salazzle being toxic at all. So it was just a matter of stalling out his substitutes, his protects, and just keeping Chandelure alive to provide enough pressure to Salazzle where he couldn't just freely toxic my team and whittle us down. And so there's just a little bit of more fighting here. Just fighting that game plan a little bit. I wanted to get him down enough so that he couldn't substitute again. At this point, I had to switch Chandelure out to preserve it. Chandelure was the win condition at this point. So I brought Scizor out, and here I knew Bullet Punch did about 20% or so, and I just wanted to wear him down a little more. I didn't want him to be able to set up another substitute. I knew I wasn't going to be able to knock him out, but just I did not want substitute getting up. But I figured, we'll just do as much as we can. And here, Scizor lives a Surf, a Specs Surf, and we U-turn out to get the KO. I wanted to bring Aromatisse in to heal Toxic, because what that did is it forced him to not be able to use Substitute or Protect with his Salazzle later on, and I knew that was going to be huge. So being max HP and very bulky in Aromatisse, I thought this was a fantastic opportunity to go ahead and Cleric my Toxics away. And so that's what we went ahead and did. I was just praying for no flinch on Icicle Crash, and when we got it, I was like, okay, I can still win this. We weren't out of the woods yet, but we were definitely in a good position to ride this thing out here now. So I went for a substitute, get some more leftover recovery. I didn't think I could live another Icicle Crash, but I wanted to be set up in case he did get the miss, that we would be able to live a following Icicle Crash the next turn and still be able to deal damage with the Moonblast. Unfortunately, he lands it. Aromatisse goes down, and at this point, he didn't he wasn't sure if Bullet Punch was going to live. He thought it was a roll. He didn't know that I brought Metal Coat. It was a free Bullet Punch for me. If he would have opted to go out to Salazzle, that probably would have ended the game right there because Bullet Punch would have had about 20%, and he would have been stuck with his pants down with Salazzle, so to speak. Salazzle would have been dead in the water, and Scizor would have just finished the game off, aside from taking out Conkeldurr. But he stays in, and we get the knockoff with we get the KO with Bullet Punch. He's going to go for Protect, get a little extra health back, and then we're going to just keep Bullet Punching. And at this point, we're giving him Scizor, but not for free. We need to get some damage on Salazzle, so we can't just freely substitute. If you see, that did more damage than I thought it was going to do. That did 31%, and so that last Protect on Salazzle was huge. If he wouldn't have gone for Protect, Scizor would have just cleaned Salazzle out right there and would have won a little bit easier. But he gets the extra leftovers recovery. He lives a Bullet Punch and then was able to take out Scizor, which that was fine with us. At this point, Chandelure is the win condition. He can't Mach Punch it with Conkeldurr. His Conkeldurr's burned. So 1 Hex, Conkeldurr's gone. He's forced to go for Toxic with Salazzle right now. He needs to Toxic Chandelure in order to do any kind of damage because we're Flash Fire. And that was game at this point. Getting rid of Salazzle was annoying. I always forget how annoying Salazzle is. Just that Toxic sub Protect set. It is something to deal with. But we're able to come out of there unscathed in our win-loss column and able to pick up the win. So again, I misplayed in this game in my opinion quite a bit. Hats off to my opponent in BerryFairy though. He played well. He played Salazzle very well, I thought, and he did a good job of pivoting around me. And unfortunate for him, his Lickitung went down to a crit, and had that not happened, I don't know if I would have been able to pull this off, because Lickitung just being able to wish past the rest of his team would have been so annoying throughout the match, and I think he would have just been able to will me down maybe. But we were fortunate we got that, and he was a little bit lucky too. I sorely outplayed or misplayed my Mew, kind of like I went over in the beginning of the match. I definitely needed to keep Taunt up on the Dusclops so Mew wouldn't have gotten statused, and could have just kept building up those defenses for store power. Had I done that, I think Mew would have been able to sweep, possibly. Salazzle Toxic might have caught up at some point, but definitely would have provided enough pressure to do enough damage and take enough threats out that the rest of my team would have had a much easier time dealing with whatever was left over. So that's something I have to learn from for next time, and just kind of keep in my mind and kind of slow things down and think a little bit ahead. So, but yeah, that was my Week 10 matchup against BerryFairy in the IPA. We moved to 6-4 with that, and I believe we have a +7 differential. We lost a lot of games at the beginning of the season, and so our differential isn't exactly the greatest. And I'm not one to really play for differential a lot. It's a big tiebreaker, I realize. Being kind of still fresh in the draft league scene, I tend to build or play just for the win. I don't necessarily care too much about the differential. So that's always my mindset. And yeah, so we don't have the greatest differential, but we're 6-4, and I think with this win we locked ourselves into the playoffs. And now it's just the last week of the season to determine, what seed we're going to be. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for watching this, checking out. Hopefully you guys learned a few things. I can leave a link to a Discord, the Quarantine Draft League, below, and the IPA in case you guys want to join. We always got things going on. I know in the IPA we have some side leagues going on right now. We're running through an Ubers side league while this regular season is finishing up, and we have Season 2 ready and geared up to go once Season 1 is done. And so, yeah, you guys come and join the Discord, hang out with us, get ready to play some more draft league stuff with us. There's always room for more people. And if you like the video, hit the subscribe button, and there's gonna be a lot more content out like this coming out in the future. And again, I apologize for how crude this is. Maybe this is my first time recording, so it will get better, I promise. And with that, I'm just gonna sign off, and thanks for watching, guys. Peace.